guys, it's Mijaelle, and today we're talking to Tim Harbour, who runs Jump Ship Music, where he composes music and sound effects for video games. He's also a music teacher and is part of a couple of bands, so he has got a lot to offer. Hope you guys enjoy. Hello, Tim.
Hi.
Okay, so you compose music for indie video games and you do sound effects as well. What do you enjoy about being able to compose music for different themes?
I think that's the most fun thing about doing composition, I guess, not even just video game composition, over being a practical musician and playing in a band, is that you get to do different stuff. You get to, like I've worked on a zombie game and a kids kind of game, and the music is so different. It's really scary and dark, and the other one's really happy and almost classical. So that's the fun. That's kind of what drew me to doing composition.
And then how do you match the genre to the game? Does your client give you a brief, or do you just say, okay, well, hey, that's got a robot in it, it's got to be electronic?
It's a mixture of, I guess it's a mixture of stuff. It depends on the developers, what kind of people they are. Some people will say they want to use me, and then they'll go through my previous work and say we'd like something like this, or other people will just say, hey, I'll ask them to give me like 5 words,
Okay, just some kind of guideline.
Guide words that I'll just give them a draft. I mean, that's happened with one project. The guy didn't even know what sort of style. He just showed me what the previous work was. I gave him something. He was like, not like that, a bit more like this, and then I gave him something else, and it was okay.
And then when did you start Jump Ship Music?
I've been planning it for a year and a bit, but I've only in the last 6 months got the website together, put up all my projects that I've worked on.
Oh, that's quite recent.
Yeah, it's
well, you know that
the brand is recent.
Yeah.
I just figured, I don't like the idea of calling it Tim Harbour Music. It's quite boring. A lot of people do that. I kind of thought it's nice to have a name.
Yeah.
So then once I start getting more work in, I can register it. To start taking it a bit further. At the moment, it's just as much as a website.
Yeah.
So just a place for people to pull, and try and do a bit of SEO, so that I get random views, which is nice. My friend's been telling me, who did the website, that every day there's at least a few people from different countries looking at it. So I guess that's the aim, to build a place where people come through, and then maybe one day they come back and go, okay, cool, let me
I remember that guy,
Exactly.
How long is a typical video game song? I mean, do you loop it for the company, or do you leave it open-ended for them to use?
Yeah, I guess for the stuff I've been working on, most of the pieces have been about 2 to 3 minutes long, with a loopable part. So sometimes the song will have an introduction that isn't looped, so give it a separate part.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the really basic video game format. But a lot of different tracks. Like I was working on a game where I gave him 5 separate pieces that are the same but with different intensities of beats in them, and they're randomly selected as the game plays through. So it's not quite, it's a little bit of a different process. So each of the pieces were about 40 seconds or 50 seconds, but they're exactly the same length, and they fade in and out from each other, and they have different. So when I say intensity, some will have more beats in a smaller space to be more busy.
Beats.
And then the game corresponds with the amount of enemies in the game correspond with the intensity of the music.
That works, yeah.
So that's a bit it's slightly different format, from just writing instead of writing a piece that just gets put into the game, it's more writing
for the action of the game. Yeah.
And that's the most fun part. I mean, that's what my studies focus on, is the interesting ways you can apply music to the game, not just write a piece of music, 3 minutes, or 10 pieces of music, but break the music down into parts and apply that to different parts of the game, or remove stuff when there's less enemies and add stuff when there are more enemies, which is what
more dynamic and
it's what modern the mainstream video games, even indie video games, try to do a lot of. I think the more budget you have, the more that's a possibility. So that's why if you look at some of the mainstream games, they probably have more money to make that work. But the indie games, what they do that's really cool is because they have less budget, they actually find more interesting ways of.
They're going to be more innovative,
they find very innovative ways of applying the music to the game, and that's really what I'm trying to get into. Obviously, with the projects I've been working on, a lot of the projects can be for a competition, so it'll be a small little game that only play for about 10-15 minutes. That's a sort of a pilot or a demo. So you make 2 minutes of music, you put it to. There's not much room in those tiny projects to do that stuff. But the eventual aim is to build those projects to get more, to work with the developers closely and go, cool, how can you bring out different elements of the music in the game?
Yeah. For your master's in music composition, you're doing case studies on the games Braid, Fizz, and Journey. Why don't you use those three?
Braid is more interesting from...
Well, it's licensed music.
Yeah, it's licensed music, exactly. Yeah, so it's not taken, it's not made for the game. But what's interesting is what he decided was necessary to fit the game and how he applied it to the game. It's almost like the reverse of making music for a game. It's breaking it down and going, cool, what do we need?
Yeah.
How do we find that? What are these elements that's work? So I thought that was interesting.
Because he only used 8 long tracks.
Yeah, and they're not quite. They're not the way I feel like he builds. It's almost like a palette. The art and the music and the gameplay all actually work together.
Yeah.
The instruments work with the gameplay mechanic, which involves rewinding. And the instruments often sound good going backwards, so it's small things like that, it's like he planned, like it's a very well planned out, like he uses violins, for example, which going backwards don't sound so, they pretty much can sound the same as going forwards in a certain circumstances,
Pitch.
Yeah, whereas drums, which aren't used a lot, can have quite a different sound going backwards.
Yeah.
So there's very interesting things. I think the point that with Braid that it comes down to is that he's really, the gameplay and the music and the art all working together, and I think that's what made Braid really interesting for me. Fez, on the other hand, there's a lot of mechanics like coding happening behind the scene where the music reacts to exactly what's happening on screen and changes when you do stuff and changes when the time of day changes. So these aren't the reasons I picked the game. I guess these are part of this come out by research, but I kind of knew that there were these things to kind of pick out of the game. So there's some very interesting methods. Journey came up when I was doing a talk at the Make Games essay thing about my thesis, and someone suggested that I look at Journey, and I decided, so I did look at it, and it was actually really good. It has like an orchestra more than the other games.
You focused it all on like a cello solo, but from the player's perspective. So the music is for you, not as in the world.
Yes, exactly. It is. It's almost like it's composed. The idea is that it's or feels like it's happening as you unfolding, but at the same time, I think it has the most challenges because it's using Western classical format, so orchestral stuff and orchestral lines and the A/B formats. It tends to be a bit more static, I find. Not that the music isn't appropriate or that the music doesn't fit, but having it in this format where you've got a beginning of your melody and the end of your melody and these these sort of blocks of music, it makes it harder to just manipulate it and
you can't just break it up in the middle, it'll sound really weird.
Exactly, because all the line, classical music has a very strong sort of direction, and if you sort of cut in the middle, you get a very strange feeling. Yeah, it is jarring.
Yeah.
So I found Fez has its own problems, but because it's using electronic instruments, but the way it's composed is more, not horizontally, but in stacked pieces, like vertically. It doesn't always feel like it's as forward moving, but like sort of blocks of music. Which works kind of well in the format. So I guess to answer your question, the games were they had their own flair, and you can find that in lots of different games. I guess I just knew the first 2 games quite well. Finished them both, liked them, and then I got suggested Journey, and I thought, well, that's actually a really good
example.
To bring in.
Yeah.